Hi, this is Jennifer Bartlow with Remax Elite Properties, and I'm here today with Ana Hines from Goosehead Insurance. Welcome, Ana.
Thank you.
And today we're going to talk about flood insurance. So, Ana, can you tell me a little bit? Oh, and by the way, if you like this, give us a thumbs up or comment below, and we'll be more than happy to answer any questions. I guess the first thing we should start with is, when is hurricane season?
Hurricane season has already started.
Yeah.
It started on June 1st.
Okay.
And it's going to last all the way until November 30th.
Wow, that's a long season.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, when I'm working with a buyer, why is it important for somebody who's going to purchase a home to purchase flood insurance?
Okay, well, a lot of times I get people, when I'm writing their home insurance, I'll offer them flood insurance, and they're like, oh, well, I don't need it because I don't live in a flood zone. And I basically, since the Hurricane Harvey occurred, there were about 80% of Hurricane Harvey victims that didn't live in designated flood zones.
Wow.
So you do need flood insurance, that if you're in a flood zone or not. And I tell everybody this, if it rains in your area, it can still flood. So yeah. I think everybody needs flood insurance, and it's a good peace of mind. Even, a lot of people during Hurricane Harvey came really close to flooding, and I've been getting a lot of calls now this year.
Yeah.
I think I need the flood insurance now.
And that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, so when we talk about flood insurance, I know that when the tax day floods hit, and this is a personal story, my husband, we were standing outside, and we were not in a flood zone, but the waters were coming up the street, and my husband was dialing the flood policy people, like, oh, we need a flood, and we need to put it on right now. And I said, I don't think it's going to go into effect because we're in the middle of a flood event.
Yes.
And so what can you kind of tell me about how that works?
Okay, well, there are waiting periods for flood insurance for people like that, obviously.
Yeah.
You don't want to just have people calling the day of the flood and trying to get policies.
Right.
So when you purchase a home, especially it's for people that do not live in flood zones, if you want to buy flood insurance, from the time that you purchase the policy and pay it in full, there's a waiting period of 30 days.
Okay.
So if you call me today and say, hey, I need flood insurance, and you pay it in full, and it floods tomorrow, you're not going to have coverage. Even though you paid me for that policy in full, you have to wait out that 30 days from that date that you paid it.
Okay.
Yes. And for people that do live in flood zones, especially like if you're purchasing a new home, you're required to have flood insurance from the lender. So that exception, the waiting period would be you don't have a waiting period if you're closing on a home that's not in a flood zone. You get the coverage right when you close on the home.
Okay, all right. And so the difference is, so if you're in a flood zone or not in a flood zone and you're purchasing a new home, you don't have a waiting period because it's a new home and the lender requires?
No.
Okay.
So if you're purchasing a new home, if you're in a flood zone, there's no waiting period.
Right.
If you aren't in a flood zone, you still have that 30-day waiting period because the lender doesn't require you to have the insurance.
Yes, okay.
So that has to be handled outside of your closing.
Okay.
And you take care of that. It's not going to be included in your mortgage payment because you're not required by the lender to have that.
Right.
So you would have that 30-day waiting period if you're not in a flood zone.
If you're not in a flood zone, okay.
Yes.
And tell me what is the difference between different types of policies out there? So I know there's the FEMA, and then there's all kinds of different things going on. Like, what does this policy cover with the National Flood Insurance Policy, and then versus some private market flood insurance?
Okay, the National Flood Insurance Program is there's basically two types of flood policies you can get.
Okay.
Two options you have. There's the policies through the National Flood Insurance Program, which are regulated through the government.
Okay.
And they have strict, they're regulated by the government, and they have to follow the rules for them. Then there's the private market flood, and they are not regulated by the government, so they have more leeway as to what they can cover.
Right.
So some examples of coverages that are not offered on the National Flood Policy versus the private market The National Flood Insurance policy doesn't cover you for loss of use.
Okay.
So say, for example, there's a flood and you can't live in your home while it's being repaired and you need to stay in a hotel.
Yeah.
Well, you try to collect money to pay for those hotel expenses on your NFIP policy, they're not going to pay for that.
Yeah.
It's not covered. Where on the private market flood policies, they do offer coverage for that, for additional premium, but you can get coverage for loss of use on there. So
and that's good to know.
Key point there.
Absolutely. Especially when the hurricane happened and a lot of people were out of their homes, and so they'd had that additional private mortgage insurance, loss of use, then they would have been able to stay in a hotel or rent.
And a lot of people thought, oh, I can collect that under my homeowner's policy. Well, your homeowner's policy does not cover you for flood.
Yeah.
Anything related to flood, you're not going to get coverage on that. So
right.
Now, I noticed like with Hurricane Harvey, though, because it was a hurricane event, a lot of people were getting loss of use if they had damage to their home due to wind.
Right. Okay.
So that's the difference there. So some people were like, "Oh, I did get the coverage," but that's because you maybe had a wind claim.
Wind claim. Okay.
Which is covered under the home.
Right, because it's your roof, right? So,
exactly.
So it's coming down, not coming up, right?
Yes.
So, okay, and so tell me a little bit about, we talked about, different types of coverages. So if you have your contents, for example, if you have, your furniture, all your valuables, what are the different coverages for that, and what can you expect to be covered?
Okay, so on the National Flood Insurance Program policies, you're covered for building coverage, and then you're covered for contents. There's two separate coverages. And I'm just going to go over, a lot of people don't understand this with the building coverage. If you're not insured at 80% of replacement cost of your home on the flood policy, you're going to get actual cash value settlements.
Okay.
And what I mean by actual cash value settlement is, I'll give you an example here best to describe it. If you, say, have a couch that you purchased like 3 to 4 years ago for $3,000, okay?
Right.
And it gets damaged in the flood, and you get your check from the insurance company, well, they're going to take the replacement cost of $3,000 and they're going to subtract depreciation from that.
Okay.
So you may not get that. You're not going to get that $3,000. You're probably only going to get maybe $2,000 for that couch to replace it.
Wow.
Yes. So, and on the NFIP policies, they only offer actual cash value on contents.
Okay. So you're only gonna.
So you're only going to get actual cash value on contents, and if you're not insured at least 80% replacement costs on the home, then you're going to get actual cash value settlement on that as well.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but there are options for you for replacement costs on the dwelling itself, especially those people who have higher value homes.
Yeah.
On the NFIP policy, the max coverage that they offer is $250,000.
Wow.
So that's not going to do it for a lot of people that have a home that's valued at, we'll say, like $400,000 in replacement costs.
Right.
So there is another option for those people. If you have the $250,000 insured under the NFIP policy, you can purchase what is called an excess flood policy.
Okay.
And we'll just give you an example. Say your home is replacement cost is $750,000, and you have the underlying policy with NFIP of $250,000. So you need another $500,000 if there's a total loss to your home due to flooding. You can purchase the $500,000 through the excess flood.
Oh wow. Okay.
And then you'll get the replacement cost settlement as well if you do that.
Okay.
Yes.
And what about and then let's say you have contents that are super valuable, like a lot of people do. They might have an antique piece of art, jewelry. How does that work with these policies?
Yes. With the National Flood Insurance Program policies, they do not give you very much coverage for those items. The max, I think, is $2,500.
Wow.
So in those cases, what I recommend, if you're really concerned about your jewelry or fine arts or whatever, antiques, stuff like that, I highly recommend taking out what is called an inland marine policy, or they're also known as floater policies, and those will insure your items at replacement or appraised value, basically.
Okay. Oh, good.
And they're covered for flood under those insurance policies.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Okay, so there are options.
If you're really concerned about those type of items, you definitely want to take one of those policies out.
Great.
On top of the flood insurance.
On top of that's
Yes.
awesome. And so, are there any other things that we need to know that you think are really important as far as flood coverage?
I think we discussed like the different options, like the two different types of policies. You want to be really careful. Like if you're going to go through the National Flood Insurance Program, they're regulated through the government. So if something happens and they become like bankrupt or something, that carrier becomes bankrupt, the government will step in and help pay for your flood claims.
Right.
Where private market flood, they are not regulated by the government. So if they become insolvent for some reason, they're not going to pay your flood claims. You're pretty much out of luck.
Right.
So what I'm getting at here is you want to be careful and research who you're going with. I know at Goosehead Insurance, we're an independent agency and we have several carriers that we write with, and we are very picky on who we partner with, and we want to make sure that they all have financial stability.
Yeah.
And we're not just going to partner with anybody. So we do have some really good private market flood carriers out there that we could write you with if that's one of the options you want to go, or the route that you want to take.
Okay.
Just do your research if you're shopping around with other carriers. You want to make sure that you do the research on that private market flood.
Okay, that's really good to know.
Yes.
Because if you think you're covered and then you realize that...
Yeah, if something happens with those carriers, who's going to take care of you?
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good point.
Yes.
Well, I really appreciate you being here. And again, if you like, give us a thumbs up, say you like this video, comment below. If you have questions, we'll definitely get back to you. If it's not... if you're seeing this as a replay, we'll still get back to you with any answers that we can. And I really appreciate it. I appreciate you guys joining us, and I appreciate you, Anna. Thank you so much. And I do refer my stuff to Anna. Anna's been great, and I love working with her. So anyways, again, any questions, and we'll welcome the comments and suggestions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.